All right, good morning. Welcome to SSB Parts. We're going to do an oil change on a 2003 Acura MDX. And on this vehicle here, it's a customer's vehicle, somebody has removed the gravel shield under here that protects the pan and everything from water and dirt and gravel. So it's already off. Yours might still be on there. If so, then you got to take the screws out and drop the gravel shield to get to the oil pan. The oil pan's right here. It's on the passenger side of the car by the front suspension. And the location, which is real important, it's hard to find a lot of cars. They don't know where you put the oil filter. The oil filter is over here on the passenger side, right by the suspension. And the oil filter is where you can get to it. There's a plastic cover here that you can either push in or you can pull this out to one side and get to it. But the way this one's set up, the other shield's missing, so we're just going to push it in and you can get to the oil filter and remove it. So the oil filter is easy to get to. It's not on top of the engine, it's not in the front, it's down here on the side, on the passenger side. So that's good to remember where the oil filter is located. So we're going to remove this oil filter, and it was just hand tight. And when you put oil filter back on, you put it on only hand tight, as tight as you can get it with your hand. You don't use a wrench to tighten it on because oil filters don't need that much tightening. And if you over tighten them, they're almost impossible to get back off. They shouldn't come off hard all the way like that. Once you get them loose, they usually spin right off. But for some reason, this one's really hard to get off. You probably don't have a car lift at home. Most people don't. So it'll probably be easy for you to do the oil change is to jack it up underneath the suspension. Make sure you don't jack it up under here. You put your jack underneath the suspension on the side of the car where there's a place to put the jack. Jack it up. It's easy to take your tire off, and then you can get to the oil filter a lot simpler with the tire off. Somebody has put this oil filter on. Maybe a little cross stud, I'm not sure. It shouldn't come off that hard. But if all else fails, you can use a pair of channel locks, and then you can easily get to it. There we go. That's it. Let it drain a little bit. While that's draining, if you got your big pan that you put underneath it, get your big plastic pan, and you can drain the oil at the same time. Here's the pan. The oil plug is right here. The pan. You don't want to get it mixed up with the transmission because you don't want to drain the transmission. So you're going to make sure that you're taking off the oil plug off the pan of the motor. This is a 17 on the oil pan plug, 17. Keep screwing the plug, hold in on the plug as you take it off, and then you can release it. While that's draining, I'm going to put the oil filter on now. And it's good to prime the oil filter, that way when you start your car, the oil goes to the motor right away. So the filter is already full, it doesn't have to run dry without the oil filter, with oil going through it. So I always prime it by filling the oil filter with the oil. Just fill it one time and soak in. You don't have to do this, but I think it's better on the car. You want to make sure you put a little bit of oil on the gasket, the rubber gasket, so that when it spins on there, it goes on without getting knocked off. Another thing you want to make sure is when you take your old oil filter off, make sure that the rubber gasket came off with it. Sometimes the rubber gasket stays on there and you don't notice it, and then when you put yours in, when you start your car, the oil will just flood out. That'll be the reason. Make sure that your rubber gasket comes off with the old oil filter. Make sure your new one's on. It should spin on freely, not hard. It should go on freely with your hand. If it goes on hard, then you've got it cross-threaded, and you don't want to do that. You just take your hands, tight as you can get it with your hand. That's all it needs. And then when you get your oil back in, put your plug back in. When you get your oil back in, and you add your oil, make sure that you start the car and you look underneath to make sure there's no leaks on the oil filter or the oil plug. Always double check that you got everything tightened and there's no leaks. It's very important that you take time to put this plug in nice and straight. It should go in easy. If it don't, then you got it cross-threaded. And somebody has put this one on cross-threaded. I'm gonna have left the car up. When I pulled this plug off, there was a thread from the pan, so somebody's put this on a little bit crooked, but I'm gonna try to get it back on the right way. There we go, nice and easy. See, that's very important because if that goes on hard, don't use your wrench to put it in. When you first start it, the plug has got to spin freely. Freely, just like your oil filter, it's got to spin freely. If it's in bind, you've got it crooked. If you got it crooked, you force it, you're going to ruin the threads on the pan, and then you have to have a mechanic or somebody put a Healy coil in it. And that's another project.
Or you want it closed? Yeah. We lower it, and then after you close that,
and the same thing when you tighten this, you don't want to over tighten it. You'll strip it out. It'll strip out very easily. You just want to put a little bit of pressure. Just like that. That's good. You don't torque it. And that's all you do underneath. Got the filter on, you make sure your plug's in. Everything looks good. Let it down, and right away add the oil. Don't go do something else, because if you forget to add the oil, you start the car, you got problems. We're going to put the oil in it now. When you get your oil from Napa or AutoZone or wherever you get your oil, you tell them what year of car you got, and they usually look it up and they'll tell you what weight you need. This car here, it says right on the cap, it takes 520. And they can also tell you how many quarts it takes. It usually takes 5 quarts. But every car is a little bit different. The oil filler on this 2003 Acura MDX is in the front of the engine, right by the radiator. Locate it easily, you just look around the engine. Some are in different places, but on this one here, it's in the front. You get your funnel. That way you don't spill all over the engine and make it smoke. And like I said, it takes about 5 quarts. Every car is different. When you go to the auto parts and get the oil, you tell them what year, what size engine you got, and they'll tell you how many quarts, and they'll tell you what weight you need. If you have any doubts of how much it takes or what weight you need. This one takes 520. This is 5 quarts a gallon. It tells you right on how many quarts it is, and it's 520. And you can pour the oil real slowly. Make sure the funnel's in good and it's not halfway in. This is a 3.5 liter engine in this Acura. This is about all you do to change oil. Oil change is not real hard. Just got to make sure where the oil filter's at. Make sure you get the plug in right. Don't cross-thread it. This oil change is not hard at all. Make sure you get your cap back on, not to forget that. If you forget it, of course it'll fall off when you drive and it'll spray oil out here. I mean, it won't gush out, but it will make a mess. And now we need to find where you check it, the dipstick. Let me get my flashlight. The dipstick is right in the front of the engine here. It's usually orange or yellow to let you know where it's at. It's easy to find. Pull your dipstick and you want to wipe it off. Stick it back in and check it. Should be right close to the top. It's full of oil. It's all the way up to the mark. The mark is, I can't do this at the same time. The mark is up here is the top. Down there is low, up here is full. Looks good. Everything looks good. And that's all you have to do for an oil change. That's it. You're all done, ready to start your car. And like I said, start it, check it, and make sure there's no leaks. That's very important. I know you probably remember you did everything, but always double check yourself because your engine's at stake. You don't want to burn the engine up. Make sure there's no leaks. You don't want to hit the road and you have a leak and you never checked it. It's always good to be sure. That's what happens a lot of times at the oil change places. They forget to put the plug in or they don't tighten it and they don't check it. It's happened many times. And that's it. Thank you.